I don't promise you forever written in years or days. I promise you something deeper than time itself. I promise you every heartbeat I have left. I promise you love until my last breath. Love does not always announce itself with grand moments or dramatic promises. Sometimes it arrives so quietly that you barely notice it at first. It slips into your life through small conversations, shared glances, and moments that seem ordinary until they are remembered later as the beginning of everything. That was how love found me. Not as a thunderstorm, but as a gentle rain that slowly soaked into my soul. At first, there was no urgency, no fear of losing, no realization of how deeply it would change me. There was just comfort, a strange sense of familiarity, as if my heart recognized yours long before I did. Being around you felt natural, effortless, like something that had always belonged in my life. I didn't know it then, but those quiet moments were planting roots far deeper than I could imagine. As time passed, that quiet feeling grew stronger. The simple sound of your voice began to matter more than the noise of the world. Your presence started to bring peace where there was once restlessness. I began to notice how my thoughts drifted toward you without permission, how my days felt incomplete when you were absent. Love was no longer silent. It was becoming a part of my breathing. What began as comfort slowly transformed into attachment, and attachment into something sacred. I realized that my happiness was no longer just mine. It was tied to yours. Your pain became something I felt in my own chest. Your smile had the power to heal parts of me I never knew were broken. Love was no longer a feeling I experienced. It was a truth I lived. Destiny does not always reveal itself in one moment. Sometimes it unfolds through patience, through growth, through love that refuses to stay small. The quiet beginning did not mean weak love. It meant honest love, a love that didn't rush, didn't pretend, didn't demand, but slowly became essential. Without realizing it, love reshaped my future. It changed my priorities, my dreams, the way I saw tomorrow. What once felt uncertain began to revolve around one certainty. You. The quiet beginning had become the center of my life, guiding every step forward, turning a simple connection into something that felt written long before we ever met. Loving one soul is easy when everything feels perfect. The real meaning of love reveals itself when pain enters the story and staying becomes a choice that must be made again and again. There were moments when loving you hurt more than letting go would have, moments when silence felt heavier than words, moments when misunderstanding built walls between us, yet even then, my heart never looked for another place to belong. Pain tested this love in ways happiness never could. It questioned my patience, my strength, my ability to forgive. There were nights when my thoughts were restless, when doubt whispered that walking away would be easier. But every time I imagined a life without you, something inside me refused to accept it. Even in pain, you were the only soul my heart recognized. Choosing you was not always romantic. Sometimes it meant swallowing pride, sometimes it meant waiting without answers, sometimes it meant loving you quietly while carrying my own wounds. Love was no longer just about how you made me feel. It became about who I was willing to become for you. Stronger, kinder, more patient, more understanding. There were moments when I stood at the edge of giving up, when the weight of hurt felt unbearable. Yet every time, love pulled me back, reminding me that what we shared was deeper than the pain trying to break us. I realized that love is not proven by how loudly we declare it, but by how many times we stay when leaving seems easier. I chose you in arguments, in distance, in moments of disappointment. I chose you when words failed us and when emotions overwhelmed us. Even when loving you meant enduring hurt, my heart never asked for a replacement. It only asked for you to remain. This love was never blind. It saw the flaws, the mistakes, the imperfections. And still, it chose the same soul. Again, and again, and again. Love reveals its depth not through words, but through what we are willing to give up and how long we are willing to wait. I learned that loving you was not always about holding on tightly, but about knowing when to step back, when to stay silent, and when to place your happiness above my own. Sacrifice did not make love weaker. It made it honest. There were moments when I had to choose understanding over pride, patience over anger, and hope over frustration. Loving you meant accepting that not every chapter would be easy, that some days would demand more strength than others. It meant learning to breathe through uncertainty while trusting that love was still alive beneath the surface. Patience became a quiet companion in this journey. Waiting without complaint, believing without proof, and holding on without guarantees tested my heart in ways I never expected. Time moved slowly in those moments, yet every second of waiting felt purposeful because it was for you. Even when answers were delayed, my love remained present. Sacrifice showed itself in small, unnoticed ways. In the dreams I postponed, the words I held back, the battles I chose not to fight. It lived in the nights I stayed awake worrying about your pain while hiding my own. Loving you meant carrying weight silently so that you could walk lighter. I realized that real love does not demand immediate rewards. It gives without counting, waits without resentment, and believes without conditions. The world often celebrates passion and intensity, but it is sacrifice and patience that sustain love when passion fades into routine. Through every test, my love grew quieter but stronger. It stopped needing validation and started finding meaning in endurance. Even when it felt lonely to wait, even when sacrifice went unnoticed, my heart understood that loving you was worth every moment of restraint. Love did not ask how much I could gain. It asked how much I was willing to give, how long I could remain steady in uncertainty, how deeply I could trust without seeing the end. And every time that question was asked, my answer remained the same. Love is often tested not by storms, but by the quiet spaces between moments. Distance has a way of revealing what words cannot. When miles stood between us, I learned that love is not measured by how close two bodies are, but by how tightly two hearts remain connected. Even when you were far away, your presence never left me. You lived in my thoughts, in my prayers, in every breath I took without realizing it. Time moved differently when you were not beside me. Days felt longer, nights felt heavier, and moments of silence carried a weight that words could not lift. Yet even then, love did not weaken. It learned to wait. It learned to trust what could not be seen. Loving you meant believing that distance was not an ending, but a test of how deeply our souls were intertwined. Silence was the hardest part. The moments when messages went unanswered, when voices were absent, when uncertainty filled the space where reassurance should have been. Silence had the power to create doubt, to invite fear, to question everything. But love remained. It spoke quietly through memories, through shared moments replayed endlessly in my mind, through the certainty that what we had was real even when it was not spoken. Time tried to change us. It introduced new struggles, new responsibilities, new versions of ourselves. Yet love adapted. It did not demand that we remain the same. It asked only that we remain true. With every passing moment, love grew deeper, stronger, more patient, shaped by waiting rather than weakened by it. Distance taught me that love does not disappear when it is not constantly fed with attention. Real love survives absence. It breathes in hope and exhales faith. Even when days passed without your voice, my heart continued its quiet conversation with yours. Through distance, time, and silence, love did not fade into memory. It settled into something steadier, something more enduring. It became less about reassurance and more about belief. Less about presence and more about connection. Even when the world felt empty of your touch, love remained full within me, holding on, trusting, enduring, existing beyond every separation placed between us. Loyalty in love is not loud. It does not demand attention or applause. It exists quietly in the heart, steady and unshaken, even when everything else feels uncertain. Loving you taught me that loyalty is not about perfect moments, but about remaining present when life becomes unpredictable. It is about choosing one soul not just when it feels easy, but when it feels heavy. I promised myself that no matter how many seasons change, no matter how time reshapes us, my heart would not wander. Loyalty meant standing firm when distance tried to create doubt, when silence tested faith, when circumstances tried to rewrite our story. Even in moments when we were not side by side, my heart never stepped away from you. This loyalty did not come from fear of losing you. It came from the certainty of knowing who you are to me. My love did not search for alternatives, did not compare, did not question where it belonged. It stayed rooted, grounded in the truth that loving you was not a phase, but a commitment written into my being. There were moments when the world offered distractions, when life presented new paths and unfamiliar faces. Yet none of them carried your name, none of them felt like home. Loyalty meant guarding my heart even when you were not watching, even when no one would have known. Because love is proven most in the moments that remain unseen. As time moved forward, loyalty became less about promises spoken and more about actions lived. It lived in my consistency, in my patience, in my refusal to let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. Loving you until my last breath meant choosing stability over excitement, depth over novelty, truth over convenience. I understood that loyalty does not chain love. It frees it. It allows love to grow without fear, to exist without doubt, to breathe without insecurity. Even when my strength weakens, even when my voice fades, this loyalty remains untouched. My heart has chosen once, and it has never needed to choose again. Through every version of myself, through every uncertain tomorrow, this promise stands quietly within me, unwavering, enduring, faithful until the